Every business starts at zero. AG1, Native, and even Dr. Squatch that just had a multi-million-dollar deal with Sydney Sweeney. They all started at zero revenue and zero ad spend. So today I'm going to be breaking down what ad accounts need at 5 different levels. We'll be talking about ad accounts at $1 a day, $100 a day, $1,000 a day, $10,000 a day, and even $100,000 a day. And I'm not speaking from theory, because it's not that we have had clients spending $100,000 a day and I just let my team manage it. No, I actually have managed ad accounts spending up to $100,000 a day myself. So I'm actually talking about practical experience and not generic theory. These different ad spend levels all come with different challenges. And it might surprise you, but spending $100,000 a day is actually not the hardest level. So today, I hope I can give you a roadmap and what you need to slowly work your way upwards to $100,000 a day in ad spend. Let's dive in. So let's start with level 1, an ad account spending $1 a day. What would be the reasons for an ad account to spend that? Well, there are actually 2 reasons. First off is boosting organic post. So even if your total ad spend is much higher, I really recommend that you boost your organic social posts. And at Smart Marketer, that's the exact thing that we're doing. We're giving just a little bit of budget every single day to high performing organic posts to make sure that our whole audience sees it. As you can see in this campaign, our CPM is around $5. So for every $5 we spend, we reach around 1,000 users. So with a $1 a day budget, we would reach around 200 users per day. But that might not sound like a lot, but every month you will reach 6,000 users a month and even 72,000 users a year. $1 a day is not the high budget, but still these numbers add up if you do this every single day. But you're obviously not going to generate a lot of customers or leads with $1 a day budget, though we do have clients that are generating leads for sub $1. You can also use $1 a day budget just to keep an ad account active, because Facebook will shut down inactive ad accounts over a certain time period. So if you just want to keep an ad account active, running $1 a day would actually allow you to do that. Let's start with level 2, spending $100 a day. Most of you are probably not boosting posts at $100 a day. So this is where you're shifting to specific conversion targets, whether it's purchases, leads, or any other desired action. The point is that you need to see a measurable result on your ad spend. At this level, we are setting the foundation that you still might be using at $100,000 a day. Right now, your only objective is to validate your offer, validate your messaging, and hit a certain cost per outcome that works for your business. We're trying to answer these questions. Do people want what I have to offer? And what message do I have to put in front of them to stop the scroll, to get the click, and then actually for them to take an action on the next step, which is generally a page. So let's walk through these one by one. But keep in mind that our communication should be really focused on the transformation that our product or service generates, not as much on the features of it. For example, these 3 makeup sticks from Boom Beauty, they sell confidence, they don't sell makeup. The executive notebook from Ink and Volt, it sells an organized mind and career advancement, not paper. And these resistant leggings from Sweet Flex, they sell self-confidence and self-esteem, not comfortable leggings. So it's all about the transformations that our customers experience. It's not about the features. With that in mind, let's talk about stopping the scroll. There are 2 things that go into that: the ad copy and the creative. For your ads to be successful, you have to shift your intention as well from content consumer to content creator. When you are scrolling through your timeline, start to look at these ads that you see pop up on Instagram or Facebook as a marketer, not as a consumer. And when certain ads catch your eye, ask yourself, why does this work so well? Screenshot the ad, save it in your library, and try to recreate that ad, but then apply to your business. That is probably the fastest way to learn. Now let's look at a few high-performing ads that we are running right now. For Ink and Volt, we found that product close-ups, images, and videos work best. So this is an image ad that does exactly that and has the hook, the perfect companion to your digital calendar. Underneath, you find more benefits, and then we list a few features. The ad copy calls out a strong factual hook. 41% of all to-do list items never get done. So how can you use this yourself? So you want to test different hooks with the opening of your ad copy, but also you want to test different hooks as overlays on your ads. And if you find that certain hooks work best, you can create variations with that. And you can even create videos with those specific hooks. Now let's take a look at a high-performing video. Okay, so the hook is travel and vacation. Right now we're in a summer period, so therefore these hooks now contextually make sense. In this ad, we're selling a skincare system. We're not selling a soap bar. We're not selling a cream. We're selling a system that helps during travel. And the transformation is look radiant while traveling. This creative type is a voiceover video. Now, you can either create the voiceover yourself, you can record it just like I'm recording right now, or you can use a tool like 11 Labs, which actually generates AI voices, but it doesn't really sound like AI. So we already talked about how to stop the scroll and how to get the click. Let's now talk about what happens after the click. You can send your ads to a product page, a pre-sale article or sales page, a collection page, or if you're non-e-commerce and are not going for a purchase, you can also send it to an opt-in page. A product page is pretty straightforward, but it can be super powerful. About 80% of all the budget that we are spending in Smart Marketer Agency is going to product pages. Let's walk through a good example of a product page. This is a product page of a company called Nutripol, a company that sells dog supplements. We are looking at the All Itch page. A good product page does three things. It focuses on the transformation, it has a lot of social proof and authority, and it makes it very clear why this product is unique. So on this product page, it's really clear that it helps dogs with sensitive or itchy skin. It clearly shows how the product works, but it also has a lot of social proof and authority. For product pages, we try to achieve a 2 to 5% conversion rate. Now let's look at an example of a pre-sale article. The key with a pre-sale article is education. What education can I offer that logically leads into the purchase of my product? In Boom's case, it's 5 makeup tips for older women. Now for Boom, this makes sense because their customer is women over 50 and they sell makeup. So this type of education will attract the right contextual attention from Facebook. You'll get the click, and if the education is good, it will naturally lead into a purchase of the product. You can also send customers to a collection page, and that's what we're doing for Pretty Farm Girl. We're sending a part of their traffic to a collection page that displays a 10% evergreen discount code that only applies to new customers. Now the last page that I want to talk about is the opt-in page. Now this mostly applies to non-e-commerce businesses. So for example, if you're generating leads for your lead magnet or for a webinar. However, it still applies to e-commerce businesses, for example, where you're going to do a product launch and you want to build a VIP list, then you would still use an opt-in page for that. For opt-in pages, we're trying to hit a conversion rate between 25 and 40%. This is one of our opt-in pages, and this one is specifically for the Smart Marketer Show. And the structure and the layout of an opt-in page is pretty straightforward. It has a clear promise at the top, in this case, what is working right now, and then we just clearly break down what they can expect from the promise. So in this case, we talk about the show. We talk about who's featured in the show. The most important thing that there's clarity from the ad. So you talk about the ad, it makes logically sense to click. They basically get confirmed on the page and more what they see in the ad, and therefore people opt in. So the ad send from the ad to the page is really important. So now you have an ad that stops the scroll, gets the click, and a contextually good click, and then you send them to a page that converts. There's a lot that goes into this level, and you're setting the foundation that you still might be using at 100,000 a day in ad spend. That's why this is so important. So when you validate the offer, you have at least one ad that is converting and hitting the benchmark that works for you, you can start scaling up to level 3, $1,000 a day in ad spend. So what does it take to spend $1,000 a day on ads? Everything that we just discussed in level 2 still applies. Now we're adding 2 things to that, which is robust tracking and creative diversification. Good tracking is obviously super important to understand whether our ads are actually getting the return or not. We look at the Ads Manager, a third-party tracking tool, and the backend data. Now the backend data is the most important. I talk about this more in depth in another video, and I'll make sure I link to that right now. But I want to zoom in on the backend data for now. The backend I call the source of truth. It's the actual dashboard where you can validate the revenue or the leads that are coming in, such as your Shopify dashboard, such as your Stripe dashboard, or when you're generating leads, your CRM. So therefore, we don't have to rely on the Ads Manager. Though it's still an important part of it, you don't really care what the Ads Manager says if you don't actually see this happening in your backend, if you don't actually see the revenue coming in your Shopify. So the backend is the source of truth. And to make sure that you're accurately tracking that and that you have eyes on the backend, it's one of the most important things when scaling up your ads. So for our clients, if they're e-commerce, software company, service-based business, coaching and information, doesn't matter, we build tracking sheets that pulls in both the Ads Manager data and the backend data. And the backend data is leading. So this is an example of a tracking sheet. This layout allows us to see what is happening in seconds. We see the new customer ROAS, we see the revenue, we see the number of new customers that's being generated. So without having to look at any tracking tool, I have a fairly good idea how good our business is doing and if our ads are working. And you might need to customize a tracking sheet so that it really applies and works for your business. But I'm gonna put a link in the description of this video so that you can make a copy of this exact sheet. The point is that with this level of ad spend, with 1,000 a day, you don't just want to rely on an ads manager. You wanna have eyes on money in, money out. What is really happening in my business? And obviously an ads manager or third-party tracking tool should be indicators of that. But at the end, you only care about what's happening with the backend. Now let's talk about creative, because creative diversification and volume is crucial in this level. In Meta's recent performance marketing summit, they actually talked about creative all the time. Here are a few slides of that conversation. Focus on creative and aim for mixed assets, then optimize for various placements. You also want to focus on different creative themes. For example, you want to have user-generated content, but you also want to have static images. You want to have static images with people in it. You want to have static images without people in it. Running various creative styles will first of all keep your creative fresh, but it will also attract different subgroups of your audience. With accurate tracking, one core front-end offer, and creative diversification and volume, you can work your way up towards 10,000 a day in ad spend. But if you want to go beyond 10,000 a day in ad spend, it does help to have multiple front-end offers. So let's talk about level 4, spending 10,000 a day or more. As I mentioned earlier, we run the ads for a company called Pretty Farm Girl. It's a natural skincare brand and they have a variety of products. One of the core pillars of their rapid growth is actually having multiple front-end offers that attract different people. Because we can acquire customers with their tallow cream for sensitive skin, but they also have body oils and they also have soaps. So within their customer avatar, they have subgroups of people that are experiencing different issues at different times. Someone might need something for sensitive skin, while someone else might just want to have a body oil. I want to be able to acquire both of these customers at the same time, because that allows our scale, and therefore we have multiple front-end offers running at the same time. And then we also have creative that fit these different offers. And within those creative, we also have different creative themes. And that allows us to scale up and capture a much bigger part of the audience than we would have been able to do if we would be only selling, for example, the tallow cream. Accounts that are spending 10,000 a day generally have 2 to 4 front-end offers running at the same time. Now let's move on to the last level, spending 100,000 a day on Facebook ads. Spending 100,000 a day on ads can feel and look daunting. And fair warning, it also doesn't work for every single business because your total addressable market needs to be big enough. For example, if you sell to real estate agents in the US, it's probably going to be hard to spend 100,000 a day profitably because there are only 1 million real estate agents in the US. And probably not all of them are actually active on Facebook and Instagram or ready to buy. But if you would sell to real estate agents in the whole world, for example, and not just to the US, you might be able to spend 100,000 a day. On the other hand, if you are selling makeup to women over 50, your total addressable market is probably big enough. So what's the difference between spending 100,000 a day and 10,000 a day? Well, first off, making a mistake can cost you tens of thousands of dollars. So the initial psychological pressure that comes with this spend was, for me, at least in the beginning, the hardest. Now, I don't want to disregard the feelings that you have at lower levels, because I still remember years ago when I launched my first Facebook ads campaign at $5 a day that my hands were shaking. But I could have never have imagined that years later, I would actually experience the same feeling, but then with a budget 20,000 times bigger. But over the years, I've also noticed that you get used to whatever budget you're spending. At some point, they're all just numbers. And the interesting thing is that the foundation that you set in level 2 still applies when you're spending $100,000 a day. It's still all about messaging, about offers, about tracking. The biggest difference for me was the creative volume that you need and 24/7 monitoring of the account and the results. The last time I spent 100,000 a day on ads, we were testing 40 to 60 creatives per week. Actually, funny enough, when I was spending 100,000 a day, this was all going to one core front-end offer. So there are always exceptions to the rule. But the creative volume, and again, also the creative diversification, makes this sustainable. And you probably do need 2 full-time designers and editors that are just focused on this account to make sure that we're actually getting the volume we need to keep going. And obviously you want to have 24 hours a day eyes on the account. And not only the account, but you also want to monitor the backend with this as well. But obviously in this case, you want to have 2 team members that are rotating, obviously when someone else is sleeping, so that someone is always checking the account every hour to make sure that our ad spend dollars are actually spent well. But besides that, even though there's so much money at stake, the process of analyzing the core principles of messaging are very similar to an ad account spending $10,000 a day. That was it for today. We talked about ad accounts spending $1 a day all the way up to 100,000 a day. Hope this was helpful. This was super fun for me to create, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.